Both USC quarterbacks, USC not on our discussion right here. 4 more ranked teams lose. The Trojans aren't ranked, and they're still looking for a coach. Michigan State, after this huge victory against the University of Michigan, Michigan State gets blown out at Purdue. And look, you'd almost think that this is a bit of a shock right now that happened, but when you go to Purdue, it's tough. Purdue now has upset wins over 17 upset wins over top 5 teams when Purdue is unranked. That's an NCAA record. They've done it twice this year. Beat Iowa, now Michigan State. Unbelievable. You go there, you take your life in your hands, you take your season in your hands.
Well, you look at Michigan State, their defense, their pass defense was absolutely horrible. A rating of 56.1 in terms of their coverage grade on Pro Football Focus. That and all the other defensive indicators, like they didn't even crack the top 100.
Yeah.
In the FBS in terms of where they were in terms of team defense, especially pass defense in that game. Absolutely horrible defensively, and that killed them.
Wake Forest and North Carolina put on a show. Now, North Carolina, there have been a lot of expectations around that team for the last couple of seasons under Mac Brown. They've kind of underachieved a little bit, but Wake Forest, which came out of nowhere to go undefeated heading into this weekend, they got upset 58-55. This game did not even require overtime.
First time Wake Forest, I think, has been ranked ever, like in the top 10 or wherever they're ranked. And you look at North Carolina hanging 24 on the Demon Deacons. Love that nickname, by the way. But here's the thing. They had an opportunity to come back. Hartman thinks that he has a free play, throws it up, it gets picked off. Guess what? There was no offside on the play, and as a result, it is an interception, and that's how Wake Forest winds up losing this football game, a heartbreaker.
TCU, we talked about it last week. They lost their head coach, Gary Patterson. They came out this week against a ranked Baylor team. They were 7.5-point underdogs. They wind up winning that game. A couple games we want to get to as far as this week's picks are concerned. Michigan at Penn State. This one's a pick'em.
Oh, baby, how is this a pick'em? Everything I've read on this game just favors Michigan so much. When you look at their average yard per game, 451 to 384 favors the Wolverines. When it comes to rushing the football, Michigan 234 per game, Penn State 106. When you look at points per game, 36 to 27, again, in favor of Michigan. Don't even get going on the defensive numbers because Michigan wins there too. The reason why this game is a pick'em, because it's in Happy Valley. Well, guess what? It's going to be unhappy Valley when the Wolverines go in there and win by a touchdown.
Purdue at Ohio State. You better be careful who you pick here because Michael's around. And now Purdue, always going to be ready to upset somebody, but now they are going on the road where it gets tougher.
C.J. Stroud, just way too inconsistent. Okay, he didn't throw anything at me.
I know.
That's good. To me, it's just too inconsistent. And you know, like the one thing about Purdue, they can play with some of the big boys. Will they cover the 20.5? Maybe they do.
Yeah, I think they're going to cover this game, even though I think Ohio State eventually finds a way. Meanwhile, a couple of games that I'm interested in, Oklahoma and Baylor. Now, Oklahoma is 9-0. They're coming off a bye, but they're playing a Baylor team that's got arguably the best offense, or at least the best rushing offense in that conference, and Oklahoma hasn't faced a team this good in their league right now. When you look at what they're doing offensively, 36.3 points per game, 457 yards per game, 231 rushing yards per game against a banged-up, ordinary Oklahoma defense. Yeah, they had some time to get healthy. Caleb Williams, their quarterback. This guy's fantastic, but I think Oklahoma is ripe for an upset. I think Baylor is going to do it at home. Meanwhile, Washington State is playing at Oregon. Now, Washington lost to Oregon this week, right? That was a big rivalry game. So Oregon now, they are in the driver's seat to get to the Pac-12 title game and to stay in the college football playoff. But Washington State has had some success when they go down to Oregon, when they play Oregon generally. Oregon's won the last 2. Washington State won 4 previous games. They've got some success. Even Oregon coach Mario Cristobal talked about it. That Oregon defense is average. Washington State coming off a big win against Arizona State this past week. I think Washington State could go into Eugene and pull off an upset.
Hey, people, we actually have history being made right now. And the reason why, you were at the Husky game this weekend and he didn't place drop. Do you believe that? He did not place drop. Or are you about to place drop?
I'm not, but how about we show some video from that Husky game, because Washington coach Jimmy Lake is on the hot seat right now, and it came as a result of this incident. He's trying to separate an incident between Washington and Oregon players. You can see him right here coming in, and he gets into the grill of a walk-on linebacker, basically hits him in the face, then pushes him in the back. He's been suspended for 1 game. The Huskies had huge expectations coming into this year. They have laid a complete egg. They're 4-5 right now, and I don't know how Jimmy Lake survives this. So we've talked about coaches that have been on the hot seat and have gotten fired. I think this is absolutely going to happen.
Well,
it's just a case of
You talked about it prior to us starting to shoot here, and that's the fact if, what are they, 4-5? If they're 8-1, maybe he can survive this.
Yeah.
And winning solves a lot of things. Maybe this would have been one of those things, but at 4-5, it's probably the final nail in the coffin for Jimmy. Mistake by the lake there, Washington.
Yeah, it's tough. He was all set for this job. He was groomed by Chris Peterson, handpicked. There was no search. Tough. I'm a big Husky fan. It was breaking my heart. Their D was great for a half. They had every chance in this game, but their offense was so bad. Also fired their offensive coordinator.
I'm going off script right now because it's not on the script, but how about your powerhouse Cincinnati Bearcats barely getting by a 3-win Tulsa team?
Hey, every team
folks.
goes through that, Moj. Every team, even the Power 5 teams go through that. Everybody goes through that.
This is the part where, you know what I love about this part is because I know that I'm right. Mr. College Football over there who's, talking about Cincinnati and the fact that they were really good when, I don't know, some guys were playing back there 9 years ago, and it should matter.
Or last year.
Yeah.
Against good
How
teams.
about this?
With the same players.
They barely beat a 3-win Tulsa team, and you're telling me they're a top 4 team.
We're going to go through every team's record, and we're going to find every one of those teams. How about Alabama? LSU was horror awful, to quote Shaquille O'Neal. They were terrible this year. And it was a 6-point win for Alabama against LSU.
What were they, 28-point favorites?
More.
28 and a half?
And it was like a 6-point win. Like LSU, which is awful. Their head coach is dead man walking, Ed Orgeron. And come on, this happens to every team.
Okay, well, how about this? In that game, LSU had 22 pressures on dropbacks. 11 were unblocked. Just free shots.
Alabama.
Right now, Alabama has allowed the most unblocked pressures of any team this year in the Power 5. What does that tell you? To me, that's coaching, folks. It is.
Yeah, no question. It is. And we'll see. I mean, look, I still think at the end of this, Alabama and Georgia are going to be the two teams that are left punching. We'll see what that turns into.